after the interim budget for the Economic Times, you assessed that if you add to the fiscal deficit the off-budget items, which you have to because they are government expenditure, and then you also take on board the state deficits, the total deficit, you said, for the country could be hitting 13–14%.
Yes, and I'll give you the calculation. 6% is the admitted figure of the government in the budget. 4% is the admitted figure of the government in terms of off-budget liability.
So that's 10 already.
That is 10 already. And 3–3.5% is the fiscal deficit of the states.
So that's 13.5.
That's 13.5. So I'm not wrong when I say that the total national deficit that we are facing today is 13 to 14%, and this is unprecedented. Never before, not even in 1991, did we face a fiscal deficit of this magnitude.
Now, if the finance minister chooses in this budget to add another 1% of GDP to give another stimulus, as he indicated in his interim budget that his successor ought to do, he didn't realize he'd be his own successor, that will take up the fiscal deficit to 14.5 and above, 15%, maybe even 15.5. At that level, the Indian budget system can't accommodate a deficit of such size, and foreign investors will run away from the country with fright.
You see, the rating agencies have seen through this, and they are already downgrading the investment gradings of the country and of various corporates. But let me tell you this, that no country can sustain a fiscal deficit of this magnitude for any period of time. We had the FRBM Act, that is absolutely a shambles. This government will have to come out with a new set of targets for the next maybe 5 years or so. But the old FRBM Act is dead because it has been observed more in breach.
Then let me put this to you. Given the challenges he faces, given the potential of rural distress, the distress in manufacturing, and given the fiscal deficit, if you were finance minister, would you give a fiscal stimulus, or would you not? And if you would, what sort would it be?
Well, I would say that I would, personally I'll recommend a cut in direct taxes. When you pay less income tax, I pay less income tax, we feel that we have more money to spend. Indirect taxes don't contribute so much.
So you're talking about corporate tax, and you're talking about individual tax?
I'm talking about personal income tax. That to my mind will be a major incentive to stimulate demand in our economy.
Forgive the interruption, can he afford it? Because revenues are shrinking as his deficit is rising, and if he cuts the tax, the revenue will shrink further.
This is where I will differ with, I strongly differed with his predecessor, and I strongly differed with the present finance minister, because the tax cuts have been in the area of indirect taxes. Central excise has been reduced.
You'd cut direct taxes?
I'll cut direct taxes, because direct taxes, as I said, give you a sense of having more money in your pocket.
And do you believe in the Laffer curve, that as you cut taxes, people spend more? When they spend more, the economy not only stimulated, but indirect taxes then go up?
Yeah. Laffer curve in India, my own experience will show, works over a period of time. It will not that next year you will have,
but over the next 2,
maybe next 2, next 3. So that's
work it will.
It will. It certainly will work.
All right. Cutting direct taxes is one thing you would do. What else would you do?
The second is, the most important thing is that we should have some sectoral packages. You mentioned exports, where we are facing a very grim situation.
So you're talking about leather, gems, jewelry in particular?
Yes. IT, I'm talking about textiles, I'm talking about some other chemicals, engineering products.
Would you also include things like housing, commercial vehicles, because they're suffering
separately? That's domestic demand. Now, export demand, we need a package for exporters, which will enable them to meet the global challenge of global competition. Now, we have large foreign exchange reserves. Interest rates have crashed all over the world, except in our country. Why can't we use that foreign exchange to give foreign exchange loans to our exporters, which should be returned in foreign exchange at internationally competitive rates of interest?
All right.
This is one major.
And you're confident that that won't endanger the size and health of our reserves?
No. No, I don't think so. I don't think they'll borrow more than $5 billion, $6 billion. The second is in terms of domestic support for the export sector. Find more avenues for them to sell in the domestic market, because this is likely to sustain their
That
business.
means stimulating domestic demand.
That means cutting income tax rates, personal income tax. Then, then we have the question of stimulating domestic demand in sectors which are suffering, because domestic demand